Okay, hello, my name is Kaylee Olson, and today I will be walking you through my semester in my advanced art and design class. So, today I'm going to be going over a brief introduction, a little bit of background about me and my project, the evolution of my project, some challenges that I faced along the way, my final product, conclusion, and then some closing remarks. So, a little bit about me. I am from Deep Here, Wisconsin, which is about 5 minutes from Green Bay, Wisconsin. I am a senior in the iDesign program with a concentration in marketing at WSU. And then some existing design skills that I had before coming to this project were attention to detail, emotional intelligence when it comes to communicating with people, problem solving skills, and I would say a pretty good creative process. So, kind of the goal of my project is I wanted to attempt to learn embroidery. I have always had a very large interest in embroidered hoodies, and I own a great deal of them myself. So, I thought, what night a better time to learn how to do it myself? I also wanted to learn how to use embroidery software and just kind of the ins and outs of how to take something from digital to the embroidery machine. And then I also just wanted to make a project and an embroidery that I was proud of. So, kind of what my project is I wanted to make an embroidered sweatshirt that was attached to locations that are meaningful to people. So essentially, someone would give me a sweatshirt that means something to them, and I would take that hoodie and then embroider the streets of that location that means something to them on the back of the hoodie. And this, in turn, would be a really sustainable and memorable way to showcase off some beloved locations that are near and dear to people. So now I'm going to kind of go over my process and the evolution of my project over the semester. This is a broad overview, and then I'll jump into everything step by step. So, of course, everyone has to start somewhere. So I started off with a completely different idea. I wanted to make a board game that brings people together. And after a few class periods of trial and error, I quickly realized that this was not the project that I wanted to spend the next 16 weeks of my semester on. So from there, I moved on to brainstorming, and in this step, I created a mind map to really help me develop different ideas and get all my words down on paper. And with these words, I was able to make different connections and find out what worked together and what didn't. Then from that, I moved on to mood boarding. This was kind of just me gathering different images and different things just for inspiration to help me overall get the concept and the aesthetic that I was going for when I was embroidering these streets on the back of the hoodie. Then from there, I created a flowchart. This was essentially to create a standardized process of how I was going to receive the hoodie. And then from there, different measurements and different measurements and colors just to kind of help me to standardize my whole process to make sure that I was doing everything correctly every time. So essentially, just breaking everything down from hoodie size to what hoop I would use to different colors that I might receive, and then in turn what thread I would use because of what color hoodie I received, and then from there how that hoodie would get back to the customer. And then from there I created a form. This form was essentially the start to the whole process of my brand. Essentially somebody would receive this form and fill out their personal information, their first name, last name, email, the color of the hoodie that they would be sending me, their preferred thread color, where that beloved location was, and any other notes that they would want me to include. From there, I moved on to experimentation. This was just kind of me testing things to see what worked and what didn't. So as you can see, the photo on the left here is my first attempt at embroidery. This was a preset template on the embroidery machine that I essentially bought a hoodie, put it in the embroidery machine, and pressed go to see what happened, and I ended up with a heart. And then from there, I moved on to the right photo here, and this was a bit different for me as I took a digital form and then uploaded that to the embroidery machine. So I essentially put this circle in Illustrator and then uploaded it to the embroidery machine. And of course, we'll get into why it didn't finish later. Then from there, I kind of wanted to make a name for my brand, so I decided to overall call my brand Threaded Avenue. I thought it went really well with my overall concept. And then from there, I decided to create a little style guide of just some different logo ideas, icons, different colors, and typography that I used in my logo. Then from there, it was a lot of trial and error and figuring out what variations worked and which ones didn't. So as you can see on the left here, this was my first variation of my design for the hoodie. I put the text up top, and I had this little oval outline for the streets, and I quickly realized that this wasn't going to work. Number one, as you put down your hood of your hoodie, you aren't going to be able to see these letters. And then from there, I also quickly realized that there's a lot of very small, little fine details in this one on the left that the embroidery machine doesn't always read correctly. So then from there, I took that and I moved on to the one on the right here, my second variation, which my file was a lot more clean and pieced together so that the embroidery machine could read it better. And then I also opted to move the letters of Green Bay down to the bottom for more visibility when you put your hood down. Then after that, it was just a lot of final adjustments, making sure that my hoop and my design was centered on the sweatshirt. I'd had problems with that in the past. And just making sure that the embroidery machine was running smoothly and there wasn't anything that was going on with the communication between the embroidery machine and the file. Then from there, let's go over some challenges because there were a lot. Understanding the embroidery machine was just a big learning curve for me. I'd never used an embroidery machine before, so it was a lot of trial and error and clicking buttons to see what they do. Then from there, it was finding a software to help me digitize my embroidery. That took me quite a while as things cost money. So I opted for a free trial of a very nice embroidery site called Hatch Embroidery, which really helped me out. And then hoop sizing. This was just kind of figuring out what hoop goes with my design and how that hoop was going to look on the back of my hoodie. I used the biggest hoop we had, which was 12.2 by 8.2 inches. So that was really nice to be able to figure that out. What's a bobbin? I'll get into that on the next slide. And then file issues, like I was talking about earlier, just kind of getting the embroidery machine to read the file correctly. This was a lot of alignment issues. My file wasn't as clean as it should be, and after I went through and cleaned up all these little underlying marks, the process went a lot smoother. Then my main challenge is the bobbin. So essentially, this video on the left is showing where the bobbin's located, which is under the needles. And in between here is where the hoop goes. So I never really knew that it went there. And then in this video, I was running into problems where nothing was embroidering, as you can see, and I had absolutely no idea why, because I'd never used an embroidery machine before. So I reached out to Kaya's lovely mother and emailed her, as she is an expert in embroidery, and told me to check the bobbin. And I quickly realized that there's a small little spool of thread in here, and without that full, nothing happens. So then from there, the final product. This is the final product. I think it turned out really well. Not as perfect as I would have liked, but after this whole semester and the learning curve of learning the embroidery machine, learning how to digitize it, and fighting back and forth with the embroidery machine, I think it turned out pretty well. So then my conclusion, what I overall learned from this whole process is a lot of self-discipline and time management and figuring out what time works for me and what doesn't. How to use the embroidery machine and how to use the embroidery software. This was a big learning curve for me. So now I'm happy to say that I know how to use an embroidery machine. And then just some problem solving skills, and honestly the beauty of trial and error, and just figuring out how maybe one fail can lead to another success was a really fun thing for me to figure out this semester. And then why is ADP useful? ADP is useful for the hands-on experience that you get, and you're in control of the whole process. You're in control of your project, what you do, how you do it, when you do it, and I just thought that piece alone was just really cool. And then real-world experience of diving into an extended creative process and just being able to think through a project over the course of 16 weeks is not something that people are often allotted to do in school. So I thought that was a really cool opportunity. And then some advice for upcoming ADP students. I would say time management is key. Like I said in the slide before, you're in control of your time and how you stay organized. So essentially, you're in control of what you do, and staying on task and keeping yourself in line and in check is a really big key to being successful in this class. And then another thing is spend a lot of time in the planning stage to make sure that, one, this is a project that you want to spend 16 weeks on, and it's something that you're truly passionate about. And then just making sure that spending time in that planning stage with trial and error and doing those different things just to make sure that you're going to end up with a very nice, high quality product at the end of the 16 weeks. And then with that, I will leave you with a quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson. It's not about the destination, it's about the journey. For me, this class wasn't really about the end product for me. It was who I became as a person and how I grew as a designer in the process. This semester was probably one of the hardest ones for me, but the most gratifying at the end of the journey for all the hard work that I put in. Thank you.